Hello, everyone. My name is Mark from the Misplay Podcast, and you're listening to Eternal Journey, everyone's favorite Eternal podcast.
Welcome to Eternal Journey, the podcast.
Greetings, all my knights and padawans out there. I am Jedi, and you are listening to Eternal Journey, the podcast that talks about all things eternal with a focus on limited play. This is episode 59, where we're going to be doing 50 takes in 50 minutes on Echoes of Eternity. I'm going to do an overview review about everything that we've learned of the format so far for all those that are new to drafting, as well as some experienced people that might have not come across some of these interactions. But first, I want to welcome my good friends and fellow co-host on the show, coming from back to snowy Colorado. Johnholio, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Everything's going well. I've been preparing for this, stay-at-home order my whole life as a hardcore video gamer. So no worries there. Hope everyone else is doing well out there. Stay safe.
Yeah, what are the chances that first you run into your own little slight dilemma because of the weather, and now because of the state of the union, so to speak, you're back under lockdown? It's a rough life.
Yeah,
but you still have the internet.
I'll deal.
Yeah, still have the internet. All right, going across the states over to the West Coast. Alex, how you doing, buddy?
Good, man. Thanks for my daily doses of normalcy amongst all this craziness that's going on. It's good to be with you guys.
Always. You sound great. I'm sure the public is more than comforted by your soothing of voice, my friend. All right. So a little bit of housekeeping before we jump into it. Twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ, where you can catch myself, Alex, and John streaming every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and actually, every Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday now. For at least the intermittent future, I will be streaming 4 days a week now. Twitch kind of told me hey, you're streaming the bare minimum, so if you want to do some partner stuff, then you gotta get crack-a-lacking. That's exactly what I'm gonna do. So you guys get to catch me what exactly I'm gonna be doing on Saturdays. I've not locked in yet. Probably gonna do a little bit of constructed stuff, dabble in some things, see what's up, maybe do some deck doctor, maybe some ladder climbing. We'll see what the people, the viewers, what you want me to do. I'll do it, because at the end I'm there to entertain you guys. And of course, the YouTube channel, Eternal Journey on YouTube, where you can catch the video version of this podcast, as well as draft videos and all kinds of great stuff, cube videos and top fives, and you name it, I got it. It's up there where you guys can listen to me and watch some other content at your own pace. Leads us into our shout out section. So we have a couple of great, awesome people that are not only supporting an event that we have going on this weekend, actually tomorrow, as I'll speak in a moment, but also some new members to the Jedi Order. I want to welcome to the fold Battler, Go Dragon. Welcome once again to the Jedi Order. Really appreciate you guys. You guys rock. And then shout out to Circa Sparkles, Cassandrith, Scarlatch, and Direwolf Digital. And of course, the Discord moderator team. Shout out to all you guys for showing some support for the charity event that I will be hosting tomorrow. In fact, so Circa and Cassandrith and Scarletch through Direwolf through Scarletch were able to donate to the prize support for this event, incentivizing people to participate in this absolutely free peasant or common and uncommon tournament. So I guess I already dived in, so might as well. So thank you one and all to each of you guys. What's going on this weekend? Tomorrow is my Peasant Charity event. This is a free-to-enter tournament where absolutely anyone can enter, and the only cards that are legal are the commons and uncommons, excluding campaign cards and the Conjuring Cycle. This allows a lower barrier of entry where anyone with somewhat of a collection can put together a deck and play, and it's going to be for fun. But we are going to have some prizes. Like I said, prizes include $50 to first place, $25 to second, and $10 to third and fourth, with the first place also taking home, thanks to Direwolf Digital, once again, a free copy of a legendary version of the latest campaign that is dropping next week. That's right. Throughout the event as well, if you are kind enough to donate a minimum of $5 USD, or I guess $5 US, you will be entered for a raffle where I'll be giving away 2 copies of the Eternal Throne Chronicles of the Throne border tabletop game, as well as a Talir playmat / mousepad. So yeah, definitely tune in for that. We may have some additional gifts coming out, or giveaways, depending on the rest of the community that have reached out to me. But of course, that once again is free to enter, and it's going to be Saturday afternoon Central Time, noon, on March 28th. Definitely. Oh yeah, the charity we're doing is Child's Play, where they collect funds to purchase video games and video game consoles to bring to kids that are kind of hospitalized for an extended period of time, to help kind of ease their pain and distract them for just being in a hospital is being miserable when you're a kid. So they do what they can to give them age appropriate games to help them pass the time and kind of forget about their troubles for a little bit. So yeah.
Man, this is going to be such a great tournament and for such a good cause. Thank you so much, community, for showing up already before it even starts. Like, wow, such crazy support. Thanks so much.
Yeah, as of the time of this recording, we have 26 people signed up, including yourself, Johnholio. I believe, Alex, you're gonna check with the boss to make sure you have the time off to escape and play. And I set the goal at $1,000, and I feel like that might have been, initially I thought that might have been a bit of a stretch, but man, our community is coming through, and before the tournament even started, we're already at $700. So I think we are going to crush that goal, and it just shows what a great community we have here in Direwolf, Direwolf as well as Eternal, that it's just so supportive and positive of everyone in the community and even some people outside of it, which I think is absolutely amazing. One of the reasons why I enjoy being part of it so much.
Yeah, it's so cool. And like I'm also just actually excited for the format and the games. Like, after brewing for this event, like, it's gonna be super fun.
It really is.
Some of these decks are gonna be good. Like, I expect the commentary to be very good.
Ooh, good point. Thank you so much for reminding me. Yes, Kamato is actually volunteered to help commentate. So he will be on there giving his expertise and saying what decisions were trash and which ones were awesome and legendary. So definitely check that out as well. And John's not kidding. We've been playtesting, and I gotta say, this format, it might not be a monthly charity or something like that, but I can easily see within the Jedi Order us doing a monthly tournament of this format, because the format is surprisingly good. It is a lot of fun, and there's so many decks. Like, everyone that's been brewing has been contributing 3, 4, 5 brews. So
yeah, I'm excited to see what all these other, teams and individuals bring to the tournament tomorrow too. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we have some very big name people coming in. No Verb is coming in. Collector, Camel Milk is going to be playing, as well as RNG. So we're seeing some serious players come in. It's going to be a really good time.
Cool.
All right, Alex, are you ready for a Pack One Pick One of the week?
Indeed.
Excellent. All right, so give us your take on these comments. First off, we have Token of Tradition, the depleted power you could choose from Time Justice Primal. Skeletal Dragon, the 0/1 for 3 Shadow. Nightmare Dragon, flying, summon, plus attack equal to the highest attack unit in your void. Willbreaker is a 1/2 unseen at 2 justice with double damage, and then summon, play a -1 curse, a -1 attack curse on each enemy unit with flying. Corrupted 3. Calibrate, the 1-time slow spell. Draw a relic or card from the top 5 cards of your deck. Put the rest on the bottom. Brood of Eremot, 3/3 Nightmare Dragon for 4 Primal, flying. Triumphant Return, the draw a unit from your void. It gets +2/+2 permanently, and it costs 3 and a shadow. And, 2 more, sorry. Contaminating Ritual, we're not going to worry about that. And Fury Blade, the +2/+1 relic weapon for 1 fire. What do you feel about these comments, buddy?
I mean, there's a couple okay ones. The main ones sticking out to me are the Triumphant Return and the Brood of Eremot. I think the Triumphant Return would probably be my pick. It's like the most splashable card. +2/+2 on a unit is pretty relevant. And yeah, I think out of all of them, that's probably my first pick of the commons.
Okay, in reference to the Brood of Aramont, how have you been feeling about either Elysian or Felm Flyers?
I haven't fallen into that one as much. So this is going based off my most recent decks, which have just seen a lot more triumphant returns than they have of Brood of Aramots.
Okay, fair.
It's basically, I mean, Calibrate is would be worth discussing, and then also the Will Breaker's done better than I've thought it would be, that card. Especially, it works really good with siege provisions.
It sure does.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd still think I would take the return. I don't know. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, probably between Brood or Return for me too, and just because of the influence, I'd probably just go for a Return here.
Yeah, plus Return, essentially you hope it's one of either your semi-best or your best unit, right? A copy of it, essentially. So as long as it doesn't get silenced. Okay.
I mean, it turns any unit into a relevant threat.
Yeah.
A Humbug's all of a sudden a 3/3. It's just.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point. Yeah, any medium unit immediately becomes great with the extra +2/+2. You wouldn't think that, but just look back at different formats. Whenever another card gets a +2/+2, it feels almost backbreaking.
And if you have some Magnificent Stranger action going on, like, this card is much better with cost reduction effect. Like whether it gets the reduction or the unit in your boy, just a little combo there.
Yeah, good point. Makes it easier to get both spells off, or the spell and the unit off in the same turn, which essentially is for most people the downside to this, right? Because it costs 3, but I agree with you. All right, going into our uncommons, John, we have Mithril Paladin, the 3/4 Elf Paladin uncommon for 6 Justice. It has Exalted, and then Mastery 5, play a 3/4 Relic Weapon. Mysterious Waystone is the 5 Shadow Cursed Relic. At the end of the cursed player's turn, deal 1 damage to them and gain 1 health. When you sacrifice a unit, increase this ability by 1. And then finally, Edge of Prophecy, the 3/3/3 Relic Weapon for 7 creation, so Fire, Time, Justice. Summon double Edge of Prophecy's attack and armor. So the first turn you play it, it is a 6/6. And then anytime you recur it after that, it'll be a 12/12 and then a 24/24. All right. Any of these stand out to you, John?
I think these are all, good cards. I think the Paladin is like the most replaceable out of these. Like, Waystone is basically a build around win con, and then the Edge is just busted. So, I mean, despite the 3 colors on Edge, I really want that Edge. Like, that card can be just so backbreaking.
Even as a first pick, you're willing to take Edge here?
Oh yeah. Like, I mean, any of these uncommons, the other 2 are double influence. This one's like one of each triple influence. Like, Paladin's not exactly a build around, but I mean, these, they're all kind of build aroundy. I would hedge my bets on the Edge just being the most powerful out of this pack card.
Okay. Alex?
I think I'm pretty much on the same boat. Every time I've tried to build around the Mysterious Waystone, I tend to get Mysterious Waystoned, I guess, and it doesn't work out.
It's a little awkward on the timing, right? Like, you just have to do so much in the right order for it to be really good. Like, it's okay just on its own, I guess. But
we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but I think actually, because I've fallen into that trap as well. In fact, I think my second draft of the format was a Mysterious Waystone deck. We had 2 of them, so a Destruction Sack deck, and I drafted it again more recently. And I think that it's a bit of a trap, because when you see it, you kind of want to be the sack deck. But the truth of the matter is, and we've heard a lot of people say it, but I think people still try to make it happen. Waystone really only needs 1 activation. When you're draining for 2, dealing 2 and gaining 2, that thing's already going to eventually win you the game. If you do it for 3, it's pretty much almost over. So it's kind of serviceable at 1. So I think, honestly, if you have building around it is almost incorrect. I feel like you just have to build a solid deck with Shadow in it and want to play Waystone. And should you be able to activate it with corrupted units or maybe 1 or 2 Faithfuls, like that's gonna be good enough to make that card. Because if not, those decks just seem to spin their wheels so much and not do enough to affect the board, where that's where they end up losing.
Yeah, you want your sack effects to just be incidental more than anything, and just be playing good cards. Yeah, good point.
Yep. All right. So let's see. So you guys are both on edge. Let's see if our rare, which is actually a legendary, can sway you guys at all. This is Volatility. This is a 2 fire slow spell. Draw each spell and dragon with cost 5 or more from the top 10 cards of your deck. Put the rest on the bottom. Shooting it back to you, Alex.
So aside from needing this for your collection, which we often say, we will not hold it against you. I've seen this played in some constructed decks, but I'm not on this card at all for a first pick.
Okay. And yeah, very good point. Once again, we are totally okay if you want to build your collection. I still snag legendaries unless I have 4 of them, because I mean, it's just a good value. And this format has more playables than usual, so you're not as punished for skipping on it. What about you, John?
Yeah, I'm not looking to play this in my draft deck probably ever. But yeah, I could use one for my collection.
All right, fair enough.
But if I'm just trying to win the draft, I'm taking Edge here all day.
Yep. All right, sweet. So pack one, pick one this time. Edge of Prophecy is gonna win it. Sweet. All right, guys, that's gonna do it. So let's move on to our main topic. So for this week's show, we're gonna try to do something a little bit different. We're gonna do 50 takes in 50 minutes of the format, kind of giving you a quick breakdown of some of the things we've learned as we've played it, to potentially either question or affirm any opinions that some veteran drafters might have, as well as giving a short and sweet breakdown for any new drafters that we have that are trying to get into the format. I definitely encourage you to let us know in the comments down below if this is something that you enjoyed or disliked, so we know whether to do it again in the future or not. So starting off, without a doubt, let me start my timer. And number 1, Blade Crafter, the 4 fire 2/2 Oni that searches up or tutors a weapon of your choice from your deck to put it into your hand when it is played. You want 3 targets minimum before this card is good in your deck. The paying 4 for a 2/2 is just lackluster. It does have Corrupted, so you get 2 bodies on it. And I have tried it in the Destruction style deck for an extra body, and it just seems very lackluster unless you are able to pseudo or draw that card, which essentially is also the best card in your deck for that given situation. But yeah, I think 3 targets allows you to make sure that you draw something. If you have 2 or 1, in my opinion, and I could just have bad luck, I end up drawing them before I draw Blade Crafter, and then I feel really silly playing a 4 cost 2/2.
Yeah, like if you have 2 really good targets, you can get stuck in that position, but I think it's still okay because of the cards you're getting out of your deck are so powerful, and if you have them in your hand, and it's kind of like okay to play the 2/2 for 4 because you already have your really good weapon, but I could see wanting more targets to be a fail-safe against that.
All right, number 2, you want 3 forms of weapon recursion in your armory decks. That seems to be the sweet spot for me. Now granted, I always do lean towards having an Edge of Prophecy, like we talked about earlier in our pack 1 pick 1, and they're recurring it 3 or 2 times is what really gives you that sweet 24/24 to smash your opponent's face. That being said, though, it does go very well in a pinch, getting a Fury Blade back, or even the I forget the shield now, the 3/1 that could potentially be a 3/5 shield, escapes me, but that's all right. Anywho, and even Hooksower. Hooksower is great. You normally can get 2 or 3 cards off of first Hooksower, so bring it back. And having 3 not means you're going to see all 3, but the fact that you will consistently at least see 1, and you're more likely to use your weapons and stuff, really trying to hold them off for that super sweet moment to get maximum value off of it.
I was going to say I'm on the same page where 3 is the sweet spot. I agree with that one, sir. Okay, number 3, let's see. Bottled Storm is good, but not as great as Waystone Gate. I'm going to change that one a little bit. It's still good to draw 3 cards at the end of the 3 payments, but it's not as powerful as getting a 8/8 giant on the board.
All right, number 4, Dive Bomb is still a good card, but better with finishers. So if you need a combat trick in your deck, this one will be completely serviceable. It does win out games. It does take out flyers. Granted, you still want to have some units to capitalize on that flying ability, because a +1 attack sometimes is not going to be enough to take out a big flyer that your opponent is attacking with. You really want to have some kind of things like Corpse Bloom or another finisher like one of the giants or bigger Onis to get in the extra damage, capitalizing on that surprise evasion that you're giving your units to close out the game. Alex, you have anything to add?
No, pretty much that card fits with what you said right there exactly.
Sweet. Number 5, this format has so many playables and the packs are deep. What this means is you can really be a little stingy about how you're picking your cards. I say a little bit, you still want to make sure, because packs are randomized, so you may not get everything, but if you are looking at a powerful card versus a mediocre safe card, it's probably okay to take the stronger card sometimes, because of the fact that you will have a decent amount of access to a decent amount of playables, where you will have more cuts at the end of your draft versus really hurting for playables, which is different from previous formats where you really want to try to fill out your curve as early as possible. John, anything on this?
Yeah, I think that's especially true in pack 1, right? Like I've come out of pack 1s here with, I think, 0 units a few times and ended up just fine by the end of the draft. You know, just taking those super powerful cards in the packs and staying as open as possible.
The only exception as deep would be the 2-drop slot, I think. But other than that, yeah, definitely true.
Okay.
All right, number 6, super high synergy decks are difficult to make work effectively unless you have rare support. This is something that leads me back to the Elysian Flyers, as well as the Curses deck, as well as the Sacrifice deck. I think Destruction is 100% a solid tri-faction deck to be in, and I don't think that you need to be the sack deck to make this work. And I feel like I mentioned earlier in the pack 1 pick 1, where if you do build the, hey, my deck is all about sacking everything and getting max value and stuff like that, in a limited format, you end up having to play suboptimal cards because you're trying to capitalize on that synergy, and you just end up dirtling around a little too much, as very low to the ground, clean curve out decks and just run you over before those synergies are really able to capitalize, unless you have things like Shrine to Carvet or some really busted relic matters and things like that.
Yeah,
I would bundle like mythic uncommons in with the rares, kind of, because those can make the decks hum as well.
Cool. Number 7, the card Seer is really good. Fast spell, deal 3 damage for 2 and a fire. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does
Thumbs
a really
up.
good job of getting
OG.
2 for 1 when you can force your opponent to do a combat trick prior to.
Yeah.
Really solid. All right, number 8, Siege Provisions, the 2-cost relic that plays Spellcraft 1, play Endure, and makes the unit invulnerable this turn, or pay 3 to give a unit +2/+2 and endurance this turn. This card has gone up and down in value for a lot of people. Some people think it's busted, some people think it's alright, some people think it's horrible. This card is a solid card in any deck. I think it really helps up the power level, especially of your early to mid game units, where you still can get some value out of them, and it makes your top end units absolutely like back-breaking to your opponent. That being said, I think the sweet spot is somewhere around 1 to 2 in your deck. I think if you have 3, you're kind of clogging up your deck a little bit, versus 2, I think is still fine. It makes it so where you can consistently get 1 every game, and if you do draw both, it's not unheard of for in the late game for you to give a unit +4/+4, or give 2 separate units +2/+2 and endurance. It combos very well with any kind of evasive units as well. Flyers, it makes them really big where it's hard for your opponent to block them profitably.
Number 9, Calibrate does some work, but it can still miss. Yeah, if you have this in a deck that's going to have some relic synergies, and you're really mitigating the miss part, and then it becomes a pretty solid card. If you are just using it as a seek power, it can miss, and
You're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah, you feel really foolish when it misses. You're just like, yep, I'm just going to pass the turn. Number 10, play every corpse boom in your deck that you can. Yeah, this card is like It's different from Grotto's Favor, don't get me wrong, but it's still extremely powerful. I've spectated on a couple of people. I have unfortunately had no more than 2 in my deck, but I have seen other people play 3, maybe 4. It's hard to tell. No, I think it was 3, and they just immortalized one of them, and then they still had the corpse, the shade in play, but they played 3 of them, and let me tell you, that card did some work. It's absolutely backbreaking when you've bounced 2 or 3 of your opponent's big units, and then you have a beater like Corpse Boom in play as well. So I still don't know how far up the curve. I don't know if you get 5, something's wrong with the people passing to you, but you might want to definitely accommodate your deck to facilitate that if that is the case. But I've seen people run 3 and the decks worked just fine.
Yeah, that's a card I've packed one, picked one a couple times already this format and been very happy.
Yeah, the card just does it all. I mean, 2 potential bounces. If they get rid of it, they have to really consider burning a silence on it. It's still a 7/7. So yeah,
it's really cheap, corrupt cost too to do it again.
Yeah. And like you got so much time to have the shade just sit there and do it at the exact right time too. It's really good, and it's basically like a top end with siege provisions built in because it's got the endurance as well.
Very true. Yeah, it's 7 time 7/7 endurance, and then corrupted 3 to bounce another. And when summon effect, bounce an enemy unit. And then corrupted 3, bounce an enemy unit. There you go. Sorry, we didn't explain that one. My bad. Moving on to number 11, Shard Binder is worth the 3/1 risk. So Shard Binder is a 2-time 3/1 with Overwhelm, but it has some additional text that reads your first spellcraft or activated relic ability costs 3 less this turn, which means that it combos with both Bottled Storm and Waystone and siege provisions extremely well, giving you a free activation that turn, which puts you ahead on power, mitigates a lot of the cost of those relic activations. I mean, literally, but it saves you on tempo, and also it combos with a lot of your spellcraft weapons, allowing you to spellcraft those weapons for free or at a big discount. So that value really puts you ahead. Something like the wand as well. The tradition wand, like you're getting free activations off that thing every turn, so it could draw your free card. The card is very powerful. It has Overwhelm, so that's kind of nice. If you don't really get your relics, it still kind of trades up a little bit. I mean, not really, it still trades down on attacks, but it could trade up on defense. So the card is solid, and you don't hate having it in your deck, even if you don't see the relics, but you really want to get the relic support for it.
I mean, it's a lightning rod, even if you don't have the relics. People try to dispose of that guy pretty fast.
Yeah,
definitely.
Very true. Clean up some of their early removal for your later mid-range threats. I like it.
All right, number 12. In this format, you need to value pump spells higher than usual. That's both because they seem to be a little rarer and harder to come by in general, and people, as a result, aren't really playing around them a lot of the times, or playing around, the right one. Things like that. Like, pump spells are very good right now.
Yeah, I believe they're all ×1 in the curated packs, which is extremely rare these days.
Yeah, and the one you find in the Echoes packs, like Wind Conjuring is basically one of those mythic uncommons, so no, anyone passing that is probably drafting wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Number 13, you don't need a 1-drop for Aramot's Machinations, though it does help. So a lot of people look at Aramot's Machinations and try to see if they can get a 1, a 2, and a 3 from the Void, and then that decides on whether they could play it or not. Truth of the matter is, Aramot's Machinations gives all those units a +1/+1 and Overwhelm anyways. So as long as you have some utility out of your 2 and 3 drop, it is perfectly serviceable to play it with just those targets. But that being said, you can easily pick up a 1 and that's the thing too, right? You still don't want to flood your deck with like 5 1-drops to make sure your Aramot's Machinations is max value. But picking up like 1 or 2 Faithfuls, right? What's another good 1-drop? I can't think of any really.
I've thrown a Humbug in my nest.
Yeah, a Humbug.
Okay, yeah, because it's 2/2. Yeah, it becomes a 2/2.
And then like Entranced Cultist too. Yeah, true. Yeah, true. You don't even have to play one if you're running the nest.
Yeah, and exactly. If you are running Nest, then there you go. There's your 1-drop. So there is some inherent value there, but don't feel like if you don't have the 1-drop, it's not quite good, because there are going to be times where you might not even, you'll have access to your machinations and not have a 3 or a 2-drop in the void just yet. But
Yeah, in that case, I mean, Faithful is like the gravy one, right? Because it just gets bigger every time you recur it to.
Yeah, that
and you're guaranteed to have something to eat. You know, if your 2-drop is medium, like a stranger, you just eat that with the Faithful, right? Like,
and then 3-drops, if you have one that's evasive like a flyer, or obviously Rectifier, then you're just sitting pretty, because then Rectifier silences something on the way back in, and it's a big enough threat where they have to really consider blocking it or not. So yeah.
What's the 3? Yeah, that one's a good one to do it too.
Yep.
All right, number 14, Thunder of Wings is really good. Like that's about all there is. Like that, a 4/2 hasty flyer, or charge flyer, excuse me, on turn 3. That is a backbreaking card. Like that's really good. It's overperformed in this format, like more than I think any of us thought. Even
it's a must answer threat for sure.
I think can just close out the game so fast,
really fast, like even faster than Burning Core Drake 1. It's 4 damage instead of 2 or 3, and then plus it has charge, so immediately it comes in swinging. One thing of note though, it does die to Humbug Nest, so keep in mind what kind of power your opponent has open before you just send it into the red zone.
True.
But yeah, that was literally a draft where all 3 of my losses came at the hands of Thunder of Wings. So
yeah,
if you can't answer it, you're pretty much gonna die pretty fast. It's a quick clock. All right, number 15, Ruin, as Jedi would say, Ruin. 1 fire, destroy any target attachment. Any opponent's attachment.
Yep, correct.
This card can very easily make your deck. There's plenty of attachments running around that you will be very happy to destroy. Most importantly, being big relic weapons. It's kind of a punch in your opponent's face when they cast 7.
I think if you're in time, Disjunction is going to be the one you're looking for here. But if you're not and you're in fire, Ruin is very much playable.
Yeah, the reason why we put it in here is because, I mean, I think everyone's already on to Disjunction, right? It gets back your weapon, it could break theirs. But Ruin, I think, is one of the cards that it's very format dependent, where sometimes it's horrible and sometimes it's really good. And right now it's really good, much like what Alex said. There's nothing better than when your opponent pays 7, takes their whole turn off to play Hook Sword, tries to kill your best unit, and then you're like, Ruin, and breaks it. They don't get the Oni, and yeah.
The only thing better is swirling it, because you know they're going to be trying to recur it from their void.
But then it allows you to Bladecrafter it. Which you witnessed.
Yeah, that's a thing too. It's still not safe when you swirl it, but it's safer at least.
Flying units are safe to get rid of. Weapons, you're rolling the dice.
Right.
All right, number 16, corrupted units count as sacrifice effects. That's something like we mentioned earlier, and John had mentioned about it being incidental sac effects. A lot of times when we were looking for that sac deck, we're trying to find those Nahid's Faithful, the Marsh Dragons, the I always forget that the 1 cost urgent missive, is that what it is? The 1 cost, yeah. So all these cards say literally on them, sacrifice a unit, and that's what we look for. But truth of the matter is that corrupted units, even though they don't say sacrifice on the front end, the shade itself to activate it requires you to sack that unit. So not only are corrupted units 2 units for the price of 1, which is what you're looking for in most of those sack type decks, but also the fact that it could sacrifice itself, being both the fuel and the payoff.
You just need to keep in mind that you have to pay the corrupted cost, right? Like you can't just let it wither away. That doesn't count as sacrificing.
Very good point.
And then a quick aside, it also minorly synergizes with boosting the voids, making the voids a little more robust.
It's true.
Like for the mill strategies.
All right, 17. So far, it seems like there's a number of viable aggro decks. Argenport, Elysian Flyers, Rakano, and Stone Scar seem to be the go-to aggro decks if that's the strategy you're looking for, and if it's coming together in the packs. A lot of people are doing pretty dirtily stuff, like go big style decks, and if you can throw together a good aggro deck, you can just run people over and get your 7 wins nice and quick.
All right, number 18, fall short is solid removal in this format, and this is very true. Last format, not so much because we had a ton of keywords going around and battle skills and stuff like that, but all these strangers, despite having tons of text on them, actually don't count as any battle skills. So that means fall short quickly dismantles them in short order. At fast speed is 2 cost, 2 justice, and it kills any unit without a battle skill. Number 19.
Yeah, there's also these 8/8 giants floating around with,
Oh, yeah.
with no battle skills.
Yeah.
Those things are kind of hard to deal with sometimes, but fall short makes quick work.
Very good point. Very good point. Number 19, purpose. Justice Primal Shadow faction has no purpose. This faction, everyone's off of it. It wants relics, it wants curses, it wants unseen, and it does none of them well altogether because they're all diluted. Unseen is probably the best version of this deck, and even then, you're probably just going off Argenport. So yep, there is no, and I've seen absolutely no one ever draft the Agent of Purpose. So move on from purpose.
All right, number 20. As a general rule, you can jam as many rectifiers as you like into your deck.
Yep, it does it all.
It just that's a good card.
It just increases the annoyance factor of your opponent. The more,
especially once you hear the voice line like the third, fourth time in that one game. Yeah.
What is the voice line?
And be reborn.
All right, moving on to being reborn, we have number 21, a Plagued Griffin, the 1/5 4-cost primal flying griffin. When it comes into play, you put Electropy on an enemy unit, which deals 1 damage to them at the end of their turn. This card is overperformed despite it being kind of looks weird on the stat line. It's actually really good. We talked about it in previous shows, so I won't go too far deep into it. But one of the key interactions with this card is Tainted Mark, the 5-cost cursed relic you put on your opponent, and whenever your opponent takes damage by a source you created, I guess is one way to word it. I don't know, I probably worded that pretty horribly. You get to draw a card. So with Plague Griffin and its Electropy Curse, you actually get to draw 2 additional cards off of it. The Plague Griffin gets in for 1, triggering the Tainted Mark, drawing you a card on your turn. And at the end of your opponent's turn, when Electropy triggers, you will get a card off of that as well.
Kodosh Sees All is still a really good finisher, and you should put it in your deck. And yeah, that is all.
I agree.
Yeah, even if you don't have curse support anymore, just getting a 1/1 flyer every single turn can easily start to overwhelm your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
Number 23, Turn Back Time, Immortalize, and Triumphant Return are all great inclusions in the deck. All these cards have overperformed. Getting back units, getting back... They all have their strong points. Obviously, Immortalize being a fast speed, so your opponent doesn't see it happening. And if you have extra power, you can decimate it to give the unit you're pulling back Immortalize is extremely powerful. We talked about Triumphant Return, or Pack 1, Pick 1, and then Turn Back Time. It does give whatever you pull out of the void bound, so you only get to use it 1 more time. But the fact that it pulls back anything is extremely powerful, whether it's a weapon, a unit, or a removal spell or something like that, or even a relic. So they are all great inclusions to your deck. The sweet spot as far as how many to have your deck kind of flexes based on the style of deck you have. So there's no surefire thing. But of course, you don't want like 9 of these in your deck, because now you're going to be drawing these before you draw things to recur them.
2 to 4 probably.
Yeah, no, I'm good with that. Number 24, waiting to lock in your second color until pack 2 is perfectly fine. Much like what John said earlier about even not having any units, this format once again is extremely deep in the packs. So if you're kind of bouncing around taking the best card and you kind of find yourself in 3 different colors, or have 1 color and the other ones are kind of sporadic, or even if you're just practically 1 monocolor coming out of pack 1, is perfectly okay, and you don't need to panic, because you could wait till halfway through pack 2 to find out what the lane is in that pack to solidify your second, maybe your third color, depending on how you're going. I.e., if you come out of pack 1 in Praxis, then you could decide on whether you're going to be destruction or creation in pack 2.
All right, number 25. This is a like a meta analysis, I guess. Any faction pairing with time is solid. Like, you really can't go wrong with time in your deck.
Yeah, no.
It's like the deepest color in this format, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, you do the 7-win deck list for farming Eternal, and you times what, 80%?
I don't know the exact percentage, but yeah, it's just absolutely stomping on the other colors basically.
Yep. So don't be afraid to play time in your decks. Number 26.
Good as main color, good as a splash. Sorry.
No, you're good. Time is good. Time was good last format. Time's good this format.
Always good.
Word. Which makes me happy because I feel like I'm a Timmy. Timmy. Number 26. 2-drops are harder to get now that the power fixing strangers or influence fixing strangers are not ×6. They're down to ×3, but they're still very important to make sure you have enough 2-drops in your deck. Much like what John said earlier, there are still aggressive decks in the format, and the fact that things like Covetous Stranger and Magnificent Stranger are in the format means that you really can't afford to slack on turn 2. So still value those 2-drops, even if, and then shoot, things like Yeti and Shardbinder are going to get in for 3 damage. So really prioritize those 2-drops like in any other format that we have preached about. Speaking of Book Club Yeti, that is number 27. Book Club Yeti is above average for a 2-drop. Being a 3/1, typically you're somewhat hesitant because it trades down for everything when it's attacking. It does trade up when you're blocking, but the fact that it could act as a removal spell later in the game makes it extremely powerful. Yes, there does require a little bit of setup where you need to have a relic that will designate how much damage you're going to deal with it. So there is that, which doesn't make this card completely broken. But like we've talked about on the show before, any card that is good early and good late goes up in value for us because of its flexibility. And Book Club Yeti does some serious work.
Yeah, for a 2-drop, like Book Club Yeti and Shardbinder are almost in a category of their own.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about Book Club Yeti is the fact that it's free to sack it and deal the damage. So
yeah, that's huge.
The Conjuring rankings, and this is probably community-wide, probably most people would agree with this, is the order of Justice, Primal, Shadow, Fire, and then Time bringing in the rear, which is okay since Time is the best color anyways, that it gets the worst Conjuring. But
yeah, I agree with this order personally.
Yeah, Justice is just it's a game winner. It's a removal. It negates half of the stun effects and like semi removal in the format. And let's just be honest, like Justice Invoke is a win voke for sure.
And it tries the Primal ability too.
Yeah,
like
I bet you could find some people that would swap like Primal and Shadow. But like, I mean, as far as the actual Conjuring spell, I like this order for sure. But like Shadow does have some of the more busted Winvoke cards available. So, I mean, a little questionable in the middle there. But no, I think this rating's spot on for me.
Yeah, I think the reason why I like this rating too is the fact that like the Shadow one, even though the Invoke is the strongest Invoke for sure, Shadow Invoke is the strongest hands down, the front side of the card is the most situational versus Primal and Justice. You could play it early, you could play it mid, you could play it late, and they're all going to perform. And you can, the Shadow one is okay if you don't invoke versus the Primal and the Justice one. Like, obviously you want to invoke as much as possible, but you don't hate it if you have to play it early. So
that's why the Fire one for me sometimes would be better than the Shadow depending on the deck, because the Fire one just like does what it does for a go wide deck,
True.
Yeah. Okay. Number 29. Most of the rare strangers are good. That we evaluated them trying to consider how powerful it would be if your opponent got the effects, but a lot of the times these strangers, they did a decent job on the rare ones where the abilities that your opponent is getting off of the strangers triggering isn't as backbreaking as I think at the legendary level, but the value these strangers generate for the person who owns them is just absolutely great. So I think they're solid pickups and you're happy to have them in your deck.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And then Burglar is probably the most powerful one out of all of them. Sacking a unit to draw 3 is just, I mean, it's
the Praxis one can get pretty nuts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually,
that's another really, really good one.
Yeah, Praxis 1 gives all of the units in your hand a +1/+1 permanently for every time you play a stranger. So that one can get bonkers really quickly. The difference to that one, though, is that Praxis Stranger, you really want to play it as early as possible. Drawing it late kind of puts you in an awkward position. But that being said, drawing it late, it does have pay for and exhaust it to break an enemy relic, which is extremely powerful as well. So, yeah, they're all pretty strong. Even the ones that we were a little low on, I think play very well in a limited deck.
All right, number 30, Waystone Gate is really good. It sure is.
It is.
Yep, John, you nailed hammered the nail on the head. Oh my God, why am I skipping on this saying right now? You hit the nail on the head. Thank you, Jesus. You hit the nail on the head in that set review, man. You were high on this card, higher than me and Alex, and we've both come around. The card is good.
Yeah, it's just good. Like, there is still a very slight risk that you get run over, but it's just so good. Like, pulling power out of your deck is good. Making 8/8s ahead of curve, very good. Like, yeah. And then recurring it for like a lot of times you even if you have 8 power, you're still just going to recur the Waystone Gate instead of the giant if it's already been killed, for example, just because pulling that power out of your deck is so good. Like, it helps. By the time you pull 6 power out, you guaranteed got some of those power draws off the top of your deck.
Yep, and be drawing gas instead. Yep.
Yeah.
Number 31, it's always safe to take Nahid's Distillation. Yep, you can't go wrong. It's easy to splash, only being 1 time. It costs 6, but you most of the time use the exhaust ability on a unit to make it cost 4. So drawing 3 cards, technically 2 because you have to spend a card to do it, but drawing 3 cards off of in any limited game can put you so far ahead. And this card is, once again, easily splashable and fairly cheap if you're able to exhaust a random 2/2 or something like that to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, the worst case is when you just draw 3 power off of it, but you were going to draw 1 power per turn over the next 3 turns. Like, that's still extremely helpful.
Yep. Number 32, Horn of Plenty is a solid inclusion in your decks. Once again, same thing, 5 cost, single time, give all your units +1/+1, so it's easy to splash. I think I would not like to go any higher than 2 in your deck because it is a 5 cost do nothing relic. So if you have a board presence, it will do something, essentially making them big enough to where your opponent can't attack. But if you have a medium to low size board, then it's not really going to do much. You're still taking a turn off, and then your opponent immediately gets to develop their board some more. So I think 2 is really the sweet spot. Anything more than that, I feel like you're making your deck a little too clunky. But this card was good in previous sets, and it's good now still. Making your Humbug Nest 2 flyers is extremely powerful, as well as making your big butt time units just a little bit bigger than your opponents is very solid.
Yeah,
and the fact that it's a little more expensive, like, helps some of the relic cost matters synergies in the format too. Like Book Club Yeti suddenly is a deal 5 damage removal spell if the 4/2 body is not cutting it.
Rageheart Paladin, oh man,
yeah, that's extra good there.
All right, number 33. This one's somewhat surprising. I mean, John knew it, but me and Alex were surprised on this one. Graceful Calligrapher is an unseen. The 4 cost Justice 2/4 Endurance for 4. Jeez, I sure read my notes better. Anywho, yeah, this card is an unseen, believe it or not, despite not having a ninja mask. And I've played this card a ton of times, but I guess the unseen never really mattered, so I never paid attention to it. But yeah, you're in the unseen deck. This is another one that you can add to get some random battle skills on, as well as being a quite relevant body.
Yeah.
Number 34, Mithril Mace or Mithril Paladin and Stone Powder Bomber are completely serviceable. Yeah, these both are 6 drops that come down in the late game, and even though I find myself cutting these from decks, I am perfectly okay when I don't and I need some top end. And playing these guys, they do very well. They both have their good and bad sides. They both synergize very well with sack effects because of the fact that they have endurance or exalted correction. And the Mithril Mace that you get off of the Paladin is okay. I think overall in this format, Mithril Mace is an underperformer, but it's still some additional value. But yeah, they're both solid cards, and don't feel bad if you have to include in your deck, but don't feel bad if you have to cut them either.
These also go way up if you're doing stuff with like Steely Stranger. Just anytime you're dealing with exalted units, like battle skills go way up in value. All right, number 35, Marsh Dragon is still just great, and it's also easily splashable. Yeah, it was good in the last format, and I'd say it's at least just as good in this format. It's a little harder to come by, but I don't know. I prioritize this card in packs 2 and 3 for sure.
Well, it's so much easier to fill up your void too with all these corrupted units. where
Yeah.
you had to kind of search for cards that kind of gave you 2-for-1s, but now here you're just doing corrupted units and Humbug Nest and things like that. Like your deck's already gonna fill up the void
True.
pretty quickly. Number 36. Speaking of which, Humbug Nest can be used as a combat trick, playing the 2/1/1 Humbugs with flying at fast speed, but also they do not have ambush. So even though your opponent attacks you, you can play the Humbug Nest in response and then have time to block with those Humbugs. Realize that if you do this when your opponent's trying to attack you with a relic weapon, you will be able to deploy those Humbugs prior to the weapon striking, but you will not be able to block that weapon.
The value of this card goes up so much higher if you have like a horn in play, or favorite. What's the Elysian 2-cost one that buffs flyers?
Favored
I can't
wins.
think of the name right now. Yeah.
Favored wins.
So if you got that in play, this is it's like busted. Like any 2/2s coming out like that as a combat trick. Oof.
Number 37. You can easily make a 24/24 Edge of Prophecy. That's right. You just have to recur it twice. So a Soldering, Smithing, and a Disjunction, and boom, you have a huge beat stick to just smash your opponent turn after turn after turn. Sometimes you have those diehard opponents that will try to battle through it turn after turn after turn, and then you have some that are like, I don't want to deal with this, concede, which is a little less fun. But yeah.
This is one of my favorite things to do in this format, period.
Mine too. Yeah. And any kind of way of pumping this in any way, a Warcry trigger, something like, oh my God, it just goes crazy. You can get some additional armor on there. So all of a sudden you're making like a 32/30. But yeah, Edge of Prophecy, that there should be achievement for making this thing huge. Number 38, Biting Winds is still underrated slightly for some reason. I don't know. I still feel like they go pretty late in the pack, even though I have seen other streamers and people in the Discord talk about it. I think people have finally come around. We've done our due diligence, and people realize that it is practically unconditional removal in this format. It doesn't kill Gorger, but I don't really see too many people playing Gorger. So the biggest threat it has is the Corpse Boom and the Giant, and even Corpse Boom, sometimes you can hit it if you have like one way of giving it additional spell power, or easily block with a 2/2 and use it, which in cohesion with that. So this card is very good, and the more you have in your deck, actually the better, because the less likely people are to play around multiple copies of it.
That being said, good drafters definitely play around the first one even, and sometimes you'll just end up, it can be medium, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. When you take multiple turns off and not like the opponent just won't swing with that one unit you really want to kill. But one thing you didn't mention is that it does go face for these relic weapon attacks, which is very good also.
Number 39, Kazuo is good on turn 1. That's the 1-cost 2/1 that lets you, and fire that lets you win Voke for 4. If you can't play it on turn 1, even then I might be cautious if I have a 2-drop. Wait until turn 5 so that you get the win Voke out of it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's such a vulnerable unit, and everyone knows the power of Windvoke. So, and we keep saying Windvoke, we probably should just stick to Invoke. I'm not really sure if we're throwing people off. They're looking at the card like, where's Windvoke at? But yeah, it's got a giant target on its head. So if it's already, the 2/1 body's not going to be relevant. You want to make sure you take the Windvoke out of it, because it is free. That actually doesn't cost you a power. You're not decimating. You're just playing it. So that's super good. Number 40. Totem Pioneer is a bomb. Do not let this little Totemite scare you and deceive you with its 1/2 body for 2. The activated ability of paying 4 to give another unit +4/+4 and overwhelm. Actually, it's a unit, right? I think it can give itself. I think. I'll double check in a second.
I don't think it can work on itself.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so either, yeah.
Okay, cool. Even perfect. I was right the first time. Excellent. Give another unit +4/+0 and overwhelm is absolutely amazing. This card is so good. You play it in the late game and you just start swinging with your 2/2s that are now 6/2s with overwhelm. And if you have a flyer, oh sweet baby Jesus.
You could do it multiple times if you have the power. It's just awesome.
Yeah.
Some people are still sleeping on this card. Like I'm seeing some of these passed for some reason. Like I this is a lot of times you don't want to splash your 2-drop. Well, just don't consider it a 2-drop. Consider it like a 7-drop. Like you play it and activate it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's worth splashing for in basically any deck.
Yep.
This card's very good.
All right, number 41. Gravewatch Ancestor is better than it looks, but it's not a high pick. They are definitely going around, but it'll fill your 3 slot pretty good, and then it becomes potentially really huge in the late game. So yeah, those are good cards.
Yeah, it's practically the definition of a C+, right? It's just a 2/3 body for 3, which is perfectly serviceable, and then later in the game, whether you draw it late or it's stuck around that far, all of a sudden it becomes big and applicable again.
One of the better things about playing this on curve 2 is, you might bait out that rectifier silence on your 3-drop, and then they won't have it for your real threats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. Very true. And then, of course, if there's any kind of recursion or bounce effect, then you can activate the ability a second time, and that's huge. And then they combo very well with each other. If you get to activate one and they kill that one, well, it's going to be a big unit in the void, so your other one can take that boost as well.
True.
Number 42, Spellstorm Stranger is the 1/4 Stranger for 3 primal, and when you attack, you get +1 spell damage until your next turn. So this turn, your opponent's turn, and then once it passes back to you, then you reset the ability. This card's good. This card is better than it seems. It blocks decent, but it attacks well because that 1/4 body, very few things can kill it without like a good double block. And then everyone already knows, if they remembered last format's Wizened Crone, like just +1 spell damage sometimes is enough to really push a card over the top. Especially things like I forget the name now. The +1 power, deal 1 damage to 2 different targets.
Ruinous Burst.
Ruinous Burst. Thank you. Like all of a sudden that one's gonna do 2 damage and 2 damage. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Number 43, Fanatical Stranger is the 3 Shadow 3/1 Stranger. It's just bad. It's just bad. Like, you want to say that the cultist you get is good for the sack deck and stuff like that, but once again, we've talked about 3/1s plenty of times already, where they're just going to trade for their 2/2 or their 1/1, or if they have a Fanatical Stranger on their side, they might have a cultist. Like, this card just is underperformed on both sides, on my side and my opponent's side of the board. So yeah, it's not great. Yeah, if you need a 3-drop, then sure, add it, but you're not doing anything completely broken with this card at all.
Right.
If it costs 2, it would be a different story. Mm-hmm. All right, let's see here. Number 44, Fear Tracker and Dark Mask Stalker are reasons to be in Shadow. Very good reasons to be in Shadow. Yeah, the Fear Tracker can just win the game at the end. It's a pretty beefy body that basically did a 6-point swing when it entered the battlefield, that can do the 6-point swing again. When it dies, it has to be reckoned with. The Dark Mask Stalker goes good with getting all the abilities that the Fear Tracker is getting for it when it's killing the opponent's units. Yeah, those 2 cards together, like a good 4-drop backed up by a good 5-drop. Yeah, good reasons to be in Shadow.
Yeah, and if you're getting past these in your draft, it's I'd say a sign.
Clear sign, yep.
That Shadow's open. All right, number 45, Stand Strong is actually pretty good in this format. It was just terrible in the last format, and I think it's actually pretty good here. There's like a 2-card combo, for example, with it and Nesting Raven, where you can, use it on your 0/4, get in there, and then sacrifice it for free and put the 0/4 weapon on the flyer it makes. Or I'm sorry, 0/4 weapon. I mean 3/7 weapon. Excuse me. And not only that, but like it's just kind of good on any corrupted unit, like any shade, right? It lets you possibly just use it on the shade and attack, and then pay the corrupted cost and sacrifice that at will, and put that otherwise useless, body on a different unit you have. Like, it's actually a good card in this format, hilariously enough.
Yeah, initially when you said the Nesting Raven thing, I do think that's strong, but I also think it's a little too cute, right? Because what are you gonna do? Just keep your Nesting Raven until you find, you know what I mean? where you draw one or the other. But then when you said it also combos well with corrupted, that I think that definitely makes it go a little bit higher for me as well. That sounds pretty sick, actually.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you're not just sitting there going to hold, you know, any given deck in this format is going to have at least a few corrupted units, right? So I think it's not just going to be a dead card until you find that cheeky Raven combo.
Number 46, Touch of Battle is very strong, a very solid card. Yeah, it's probably still the best of the touches, roughly, I believe. Like, probably, you know, the fire.
It's
and
really
the
close with the double damage one, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because the double damage one can definitely close out the games for sure. I think my switch is the fact that giving deadly is just guarantees you a card, you know what I mean, versus sometimes the double damage doesn't quite get there. But yeah, double damage is, I've seen it win plenty of games on its own. But yeah, Touch of Battle is the fast spell, the time one that gives deadly. So obviously there's some combos with like Reverberating Strike and the Felon card, I forgot what it's called because no one plays it, but dealing, you know, a card with deadly, and then even if it just deals 1 damage to all your opponent's units, it's going to kill them all, as well as just getting 2 cards. You know, you can all of a sudden turn your 2/2 Stranger into a removal spell mid-combat, and then you still have another unit in your hand to play as well. So Touch of Battle is very strong.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick to my guns on this one. I still don't think Tapestry is playable.
I concur. It's just too.
Agreed.
It's just too slow. It's a win more card. Like, you have to have a unit that's already attacking. At least Oathbook does it as soon as you attack, so they have to block with the +1/+1. This unit has to attack, survive, and then it gets nope.
Yeah, Oathbook. This is not.
Number 48, displays are not as powerful as the first cycle, but they're still very much worth playing, especially if you're already in those tri-factions. And I think the destruction one is the best one, just having the most viable 3 options out of all of them.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you on that.
Yeah, they're difficult to play around because of the multiple modes, and they're fast speed, so they come in handy quite a bit. I think the fast speed is really what makes them really good, because even though all their abilities are kind of medium, the fact that you can use them mid-combat makes them much stronger. Number 49, Covetous Stranger and Magnificent Stranger, the 2 drops that are highly contested. I don't even say highly contested. I think a lot of people are very high on these, and these are very powerful cards. They can win games essentially on their own by snowballing the game very much. I put question marks in here because honestly, I'm still experimenting with not valuing them very high in my draft, so that way I could just value off of my opponents and not worry about me playing one thinking I have the upper hand and my opponent like getting the upper hand on me. And I gotta say, I don't really regret that. It's worked out quite well for me, to be honest with you. I mitigate the amount of times that I help my opponent out, and sometimes they end up doing work, and sometimes like it's fine not playing them, I guess. So I don't know where you guys at on these.
Man, these are.
It's
I'm
okay.
Still
it's
just not sure.
It's okay. Oh, okay. I was gonna say it's okay to say that you just jam as many as you can.
No, I also am still just not sure. Like I still see them do some busted stuff on both sides of the board, and sometimes it's mine helping my opponents, and sometimes it's theirs helping mine, and sometimes it's mine helping mine. You know, like they're all just kind of so high variance, I guess. But I agree that their effects on just a body are all very relevant and limited, like very relevant.
All right, and closes out John.
Yeah, number 50. So don't be scared. You know, this is a tri-faction format of sorts, and like they heavily support the newer tri-factions. The ones with the displays and the tokens. But don't be scared to go into one of the old like unsupported tri-faction groupings, like Instinct or. I mean, I'm trying to think of like I'm used to like the win chest
Instinct,
names, but
ambition, vision.
Yeah, exactly.
7 win deck was Time, Justice, Shadow. What is that? Carandon? Is that?
Yeah, Carandon. So like, yeah, don't be scared to go into one of those like quote unquote unsupported groupings. Caveat: as long as it has time in it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. The fixing is there for it, and like the cards, if they're powerful, yeah, don't be afraid. That's a very good point.
Yeah, Carandon and Aurelian, I mean, have been very successful for a lot of people in this format, and you know the thing they have in common there is that they both have time.
Yep.
For example, like we said earlier, time is just a very good faction to be in. So
yeah, like even as a splash in a like Aurelian colors.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
All right, and with that, we are at 48-38. Boom.
Woo!
No way. Wow. We got through some of them like quicker than others, so that I thought there was no way we were going to do it.
Well,
good job.
Did it?
Well, the good ones were a little bit more, but the bad ones were just easy. Like, hey, this card's bad. Okay, move on. So,
Sweet.
all right. Well, that's going to do it for 50 and 50. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let us know if it helped you or didn't, or you liked it or you didn't or not, once again, in the comments below. So that's going to do it for our main topic. We have a secondary topic today. We're going to be talking about a recent Goblin draft. Goblin draft is something that was brought up by a very avid viewer in the Twitch streams by the name of K Stalin. He watches a lot of the drafters play and decided to bring together several of the draft streamers to do this tournament. What a Goblin draft is that each of us had to draft 10 Goblin drafts, record our records, and then that's how we made our ranks at the end of it. Goblin drafting is pretty much a stipulation in the drafting process where you are required to take any premium or shiny cards over anything else in the pack, regardless of what your deck looks like. If there's no shiny cards in the pack, then you have to take the legendary. If there's no legendary or shiny, you have to take a rare. And if those three criteria are not met in the pack, then you are finally able to pick whatever you want for your deck. At the end of the draft, you have to play all the shiny cards and the legendaries, but you are able to make 2 cuts of the rares. And let me tell you, it is quite interesting. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it goes horribly awry. But we finally got through it all, and I believe I finished with 23 wins, 24 wins, something like that. Had an okay start at the beginning, had a slump in the middle, and then somehow pulled it an amazing comeback or underdog story at the end. But the rankings were Kalibovich coming in first, which I believe 33 wins. Cassandra came in second with 30. Then I was in third at 24, something like that. And then E-Money was fourth and Johnny D was fifth. I want to say it was interesting. I do encourage, if you guys do get bored with the format, but you want to keep drafting, putting some kind of a stipulation on yourself. Like John and I have mentioned earlier, episodes with Man und Maus. Sometimes you would do a cleanliness draft or other kinds of stipulations that we've heard from the viewership. It is interesting, and I will say this, the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because, one, it definitely teaches you creative deck building, trying to figure out how to play these cards that you normally wouldn't put in your deck, and as well as creative ways to play them by implementing these unique cards in your playstyle. And of course, to step outside the game a little bit, it definitely helps you deal with like the mental and emotional stress of not doing well, because man, when you think you kind of have a grasp on a format and then you're pretty much pitching 0-3, 0-3, 1-3 or something like that, it definitely tests your mettle. And sadly, some of those games were close. So some of those games, I feel like our deck was doing the best it could, and then our opponent still smashed us. I was like, but the flip side to that is, after going through all that, I feel like I've actually become a better drafter in this format, because struggling making some intricate lines of play with suboptimal cards and trying to play around our outs when we know, all right, there's a couple of dead cards and these cards are horrible. All right, this card, can I make an application for this card here? And now having these decks that, you know, I'm making 10 cuts because I just have so many playables. Like, I'm just smashing my opponents sometimes because I'm like, man, every card I draw is good. So it's been interesting. How you guys watched a couple of the Goblin drafts, right? Not only on my channel.
Oh yeah. It was so many of those going around. Like, it as a viewer, it's kind of painful to see like the third like 0-3 in a row, you know, but man, it's really cool to see some success with these Goblin decks. Like, the flip side, like, it's very skill testing, you know, in the drafting, deck building, and the playing parts, like things you would never see normally. It's really interesting in that regard. And you know, it's really cool to see, you know, some of your favorite drafters actually succeed with this pile, you know, that they were forced to play with or whatever. So like, I really like that thing, you know, that about it.
Yeah, I think I remember we ended up getting like 2 wins off of Form Bend. Like, legitimately, that card won us the game, and I feel like chat was just going crazy, like, oh my god, you know, because this horrible card that we were like, oh god, I hope we have a use for it, and
Yeah.
somehow we found lines where I think one time it turned their flyer, their Marsh Dragon, into an elemental, so it lost flying, so our dragon can get in for lethal. And then another time I think we made our relic big enough at the end of their turn to another unit they didn't count for blocking that got in the lethal damage. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Stuff like that you would never actually see happening like throughout normal drafting.
They were fun to watch and fun to watch you guys navigate those. Like John said, some of the O3s were a little painful. Some of them I don't feel were justified. Like I thought the deck should have, it seemed like it was better than that. So you guys all made pretty solid decks. I mean, Caleb whooped my butt with one of his, Goblin decks. So it was possible for it forced you to into synergies that you might not have thought of, So yeah, no, they were cool. I liked it.
Some creative power basing as well. The one thing that was interesting to me is, like I said, I mentioned earlier that I ended up pulling off a 7-2 and a 6-3 were my last two drafts, which I actually thought was surprising because of the fact that it was after the format change. So I did 7 games before with the older format, and then the last 3 were after they updated the curated packs, dropping the frequency of the fixing strangers. So I was like, oh no, like I'm gonna have so much less fixing for all these 5-color nonsense things that I'm gonna have to play. And somehow, I don't know if it was my readjustment of valuing where I value fixing or just that things came together, but those decks ended up doing significantly better, which was a big surprise for me.
I know on one of those in particular, the goblins were very kind to you, right? Like some of the picks you were basically saved from taking like a terrible rare because there was like an on-color fixing token that was shiny in the pack.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. That was a busted creation deck. Yeah, that was the 7-win one.
Yeah.
And then the 6-3, if I'm being honest, like I did not expect that deck to get 6 wins. Like even chat said it. There were just so many games where we barely scrounged by, where the deck was just, we were on the back foot every single game or every single turn, and just somehow 1 or 2 turns we were able to flip the script and take it down.
Tight plays.
Yeah, no joke.
Piloted to victory.
Too bad I had to burn those skills on a Goblin draft and not on a ECQ.
Fair enough.
But all right, that's going to do it for our main topic, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Just wanted to touch on that a little bit, which leads us into our next segment, which is the What's the Play. John, are you ready for some play breakdown?
Sure.
Alrighty then. So this one is brought to you by me. Yes, that's right. Another interesting game. Okay, so our opponent is Combre with 0 of 6 power. We are Creation with 4 of 4 power. Our opponent has a 1/2, the Kieran, the 1/2, what is it? Platinum Kieran, and it's already triggered their mastery, and that's why they have an Eternity Core. So they went from 4, they spent their turn 4 putting the Eternity Core on, and they sent it back to us. They also have a Living Stranger in play, which is the 2/2 that inspire, give a +1/+1 to whatever unit you just drew.
Living example, not a stranger.
But what I said, strange example, is that what I said?
You said living stranger.
Oh geez, all right, yeah, sorry, strangers on the brain, factor of the format. Yeah, living example, sorry. On our side of the board, we have the Magnificent Stranger, the 2/3 2-drop, and then we have a Sirocco Glider, which is the 2/5 that when you have a relic, it has flying. In our hand, we have our 5th power to play this turn. We have 2 Horn of Plenties, so the 5-cost relic that gives all your units +1/+1. We have a Swirl of the Sands, which is the 3-time fast spell that can tuck a enemy relic, flying unit, or I thought there was the 3 things, but is it only that? Is it only 2, relic or flying? I think it's only that.
Yeah, it's relics or flying.
Yep. Flying unit or relic into your opponent's deck. And then finally we have a Horned Vorlunk, which is the 3/4 time unit with Overwhelm, but this one costs 2 instead of 4 thanks to Magnificent Stranger. All right, let's start off with you, John. What's the play, buddy?
Yeah, there's a number of options here. You could play your time sigil, play a horn. You could play the Vorlonk, hold swirl. You could play the Vorlonk and just go ahead and swirl this the Eternity Core. My line of play here would be play the Vorlonk, and I would just go ahead and swirl the Eternity Core here. The reason being, the opponents on Combre, I can only assume their next turn is going to involve playing a power and playing a Corpse Bloom. Maybe a less impactful example would be, like a Paladin or something. That would be what, like a 4/6 lifesteal unit. So either way, like that's gonna really jam up your attacks, right? So I think the play is oh, and the Vorlunk is cost reduced, right? So it's only 2 cost here, so you can, that's why we can do both here. So yeah, I would go ahead and just do all that and attack with everybody, and then at that point your opponents, if they have their power drop, it's going to be for 5 power next turn. And like, what's the worst they can do is play like a 4/2 Rageheart Paladin or something like that, or maybe their own, Sirocco Glider or something comparable to what you're doing. But then your next 2 turns, based on what's in your hand, are buff your board. So like, you should be able to just keep swinging here, based on that, for at least the next few turns. And if your opponent is missing their power drops, like maybe they don't even get to that 7 power that they would otherwise next turn. So yeah, that's my line of thinking here.
Okay, Alex.
Yeah, I was hoping John would say something different than what I would do, but that's exactly what I would do.
Yeah, and
Yep.
Sorry, do you have anything to add?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, you the pressure you're gonna be putting on your opponent, and then especially with it'll be a 4 power flyer at the end of the day. It like will finish them off pretty fast, assuming even if they're gonna be stuck on power, if they needed to get to that 6, you're really putting them back, So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I think what really sets the line of play apart is the fact that you are still able to develop your board while setting your opponent back. Because John's right, you have to consider that they did take their turn 4 off, but now they're going to potentially be 6 or 7 power, where Combre can play some really backbreaking things, especially like he just said, with the form of Corpse Bloom that's going to be able to bounce a unit and establish a big beefy unit on the board for your opponent, which then sets you back a huge turn and makes up the difference they took by taking their turn 4 off. If we were only able to swirl the sands, I don't think it would have been in consideration, but the fact that we are able to develop our board with the Vorlunk and swirl the sands is completely viable. And because of the fact that they're going to be on 7 power potentially next turn to play something big with 5 cards in their hand, it is a feasible assessment, or a viable assessment, that it is worth being proactive here instead of playing the Vorlunk and then leaving Swirl the Sands up. Of course, there's another color consideration as well. There's very few flyers in Combre that we're really worried about in this format, so that's another consideration to be proactive. And yeah, playing the Horn this turn, yes, we get him for 6 for sure, and that's but our opponent's at 21, which means we're going to take them down to 15, which is not something to ignore, but it's also not huge. That's still plenty of life. So not developing our board here would be a bit of a liability, and then we're essentially passing the tempo back to our opponent by not developing our board.
Yeah, and some of the flyers you might be concerned about, right? Like Tower Top Patrol is still going to be able just to block your 4 attack Sirocco Glider regardless, but you'll be swinging with a wide board of things that, like, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I think that Tower Top Patrol unit or whatever they have, if that's their thing, is gonna be there regardless. Like, that's, there's no 6 or 7 cost flyers I can think of in those colors, right? Like, that I'd be really concerned about. The other thing you might be worried about them playing is like a Kodosh Seazal.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, that's viable.
I think shutting down that 7 play early for them is probably just going to win you the game. Since we see your follow up is, buff your board. You should just be able to keep attacking.
Yeah. And you also get a huge tempo boost because of the fact that they did nothing on their turn 4, and you're putting them back on power. So, and yeah, we've talked about it before on the show, the difference between 6 and 7 power is quite a few turns, so it is pretty huge.
Yeah, and if you really think it's a Kodash sees all, you could just swirl that. But I mean, if it's a Kodash sees all or a Corpse Bloom or a Rage Heart Paladin, just swirling this Eternity Core sets them back far enough where I think you can just close out the game in the meantime.
Yep. All right. Well, that's our What's the Play, guys. Let us know in the comments down below if you're not driving. Got to be safe. If you agree with that play or how you would have posed it differently. But yeah, that's the What's the Play for this week. This takes us into our constructed corner, and this week I'm actually going to be talking about something a little different, and we're going to be talking about a Pauper deck. And Pauper, for those of you that are new to it, is essentially a deck that has only commons and only commons. I apologize. Now you got me mixing them. Only commons. And this is a format that was created because it's a good way to kind of change up your deck building a little bit, change up your format. It's a little bit budget friendly. Like, for example, the deck we're talking about now only cost 2,900 Shiftstone. So it's if you don't already have these cards, if you're a drafter, you're going to have most of these cards. And it's because it was the Pauper event this week at Direwolf. Direwolf, obviously understanding that a lot of people are under quarantine, decided to give us a free event. The prize support wasn't amazing, but that's perfectly okay. It was still something to play for, and we had a lot of fun playing it. We saw various decks start to rise to the top, and this was the one I had the most success with. So something to consider. Breaking the deck down very quickly, this is 4 Seek Power, 4 Torch, 4 Blurry Chaser, 4 Conflagrate, 4 Everax Familiars, 4 Blink, 4 Journeyman Armor, 4 Mining Team, 4 Sauropod Crasher, 4 Awakened Sentinel, 4 Corrupted Behemoth, 4 Cannon Bearer, 2 Champion Grappler, 8 Fire Sigil, 9 Time Sigil, 4 Granite Coin, and 4 Praxis Banner. So a couple of things about the deck. There are some flex slots that you can do. The grapplers could easily be Grodov's Favored if you want. That is perfectly fine, as well as Infused Guardians. And you'll see another common theme in this is the fact that some of these cards are kind of draft, shaft, or unplayables, and actually that is because they all have warp. And so this deck kind of capitalizes on pseudo card advantage by playing more cards off the top of your deck than your opponent. So you're still drawing the 1 card for turn, but you get to keep that in your hand as you're deploying all these threats off the top of your deck. And let's see, you can also switch the Blurry Chaser with a Magnificent Stranger or Blink Wolf if you want more warp or value. But I like Blurry Chaser because of the fact that it's a good blocker, a good attacker. It's good early, it's good late, and the fact that the Scout allows you to set up more warp off the top of your deck. So yeah, it's good. Corrupt Behemoth and is just an absolute powerhouse, and I like the charge effect from Grappler. So it was a fun deck. I had the most success with this deck this weekend. Not to say that there aren't better decks. There are some. I think the Xenon deck is pretty strong as well. But I like this one. This deck's fun. I like it. That's why we're playing Blink as well, because it's another tempo play. Journeyman Armor, both kind of subpar cards, but they overperform when you're playing them off the top of your deck. And Conflagrate just being nice, clean removal in Pauper, where it's, your version of Seer, and then later on it could also get rid of 2 units potentially. But yeah, this is a super strong card of deck. I had a lot of fun playing it once again. You can play it against your friends. It is a 75 card list, and should you have another Pauper event, you can more than welcome to use this deck to play. And if you really want to handicap yourself a smidge, which not that much, because honestly I tried to make the peasant version of this deck with uncommons and I didn't change that much, you can totally copy this deck and enter the charity event that we have going on tomorrow. But yeah, deck's a lot of fun. It will be linked in the show notes down below for you to click on Eternal Warcry. Alex, do you have anything to add about this event or the deck?
I did play this deck a little bit and it was pretty fun. A lot of the warp synergy worked good. could overwhelm the board and keep playing cards off the top. It was I didn't get any of the 7 wins with this one. When I switched to Combre, I did, but this one was definitely fun to play.
You can talk about the Combre deck if you want.
Yeah, it was just standard Combre, play units, buff them as they attack, and just beat your opponent's face. Pretty straightforward. Get in, get out. So that's why I enjoyed those games.
John?
Yeah, I also dabble. I played a good number of games in this event yesterday and the day before, actually. I also played like a Genève Warp list. I played a few varieties of Xenon. There was a surprising amount of deck variety, and I was pleasantly surprised with my games. Like it was a pretty fun event, and it was free, and the prizes were very reasonable for free. So yeah, this was a fun event, and this is a solid list here for sure.
Sweet. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for this show. So let's go into our closing statements. Once again, I want to mention YouTube, EternalJourney on YouTube. Catch the video version of this podcast, as well as draft videos, sealed videos, constructed videos, tournament reports, you name it. We got it. Come check it out. It's a lot of fun. Also some top 5 lists. Twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ, where you can catch both these fantastic gentlemen, as well as myself, streaming live every Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And come hang out. We'd love to hear your opinions and just talk limited and constructed and all that good stuff. And of course, the Discord, where we have a fantastic community. We grow every day. Where the Jedi Order, we're there to help each other out in draft picks, making sealed decks, making draft decks, and even some constructed stuff. We're really coming together and developing quite a great community there, all helping each other and tweaking each other's decks and testing and stuff like that. Like I said, you can find both these great gentlemen there as well, which is a great time. And of course, hopefully at some point we're getting really close to that 1 month stream that John has been promising us. So stay tuned for that whenever he does end up doing that. And he also plays a lot of PUBG as well as COD Warzone. So if you're into either of those, let us know in the comments below, or just message John directly on Discord and be like, stream it. And hopefully we can make that happen. I do want to take a moment to thank both you, John, and Alex for putting up with all my stuff and my content creation and helping with this show. We've really been getting a lot of good feedback both in Discord and from the various platforms about people upping their limited game thanks to the show. So thank you both for putting up with me and taking the time to be on the show, man.
Yeah, of course. It's too much fun.
It's a good time.
Yeah. And I know we plugged it at the beginning, but everybody please show up to this tournament tomorrow. There's still time to sign up and play. There's definitely still time to donate. It's going to be an amazing event. Hope to see everybody there.
Yeah, it really is a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie. We've had about 10 people in the Discord brewing decks for this event. Other teams are brewing. We're also gonna have like a underscore team challenge type thing, and we have 4 teams signed up. So it's gonna be fun to cheer on your favorite heroes, as well as, you know, if your friends are playing in it. It's an even board. We're talking about commons and uncommons only, so no one's collection is going to outdo someone else's. It's just sheer ingenuity. But these decks are a lot of fun. We've been having a blast, to where it seems like maybe everyone that's entering is going to play a different deck. That's how much diversity we have for it. So definitely encourage you, at the very least, come in, spectate, hang out with us, give a little donation, and help us, like I said, for a good cause, man. Kids that get hospitalized, you know, as adults, we can kind of understand that life sometimes makes us miserable and we have to deal with it. But a lot of times kids don't really do it. Anyone that has kids knows what I'm talking about, where when they're sick, they just hate the world. And giving them a distraction from something that's a lot more of a dis-ease than most children have to deal with really goes a long way. All right. So that's it. That's our show. Check us out tomorrow. We would absolutely love to have you say hello and stuff. But that's going to do it. So tune in to next week's show, where we have Collector. Collector, that's right. Top-notch competitive player is going to be on the show to help us break down the new cards from the latest campaign, Whispers of the Throne. But that's going to do it. So until next time, guys, as always, thank you so much for tuning in, and happy gaming.
Bye.
Stay safe, everyone. Good luck in all your draft moves.